thank you so much for joining us here today with Eric on timforrest.com. Eric, thank you for joining us and being a part of the show today.
Of course. Thank you.
I'm so excited. This moment, the first time I saw a post of yours, and it's been over a year ago, on LinkedIn, and it said the Digestible Brand. I'm like, oh my, that's brilliant. And how did you come up with that? And then share your background as well, as far as who you are.
Okay. Well, I've been a writer, a copywriter in marketing and advertising for 30 years.
Wow.
And I've worked for a couple agencies. One I was a partner in. I'm on my third stint out on my own, where I'm a one-man band. I innovate messaging that makes consumers love brands. And Digestible is a great way to talk about food. And I do other brands too. I mean, I've done my sort of messaging process probably 15 or 16 times this year. And only 2 or 3 of those have been for CPG brands. Everything else, it's been all other sorts of things. So if there's a consumer and there's a passionate need to stand apart from the competitors, even in B2B, although that can be, more difficult, I do it. And I like to do it.
How do you do it?
About probably 12 years ago, I had a number of experiences where I was called in to take part in sort of like one of these 1 or 2 day branding sessions. The first one was for Naked Juice years and years ago. And I was lucky. I got to do a number of these, and they were for Procter & Gamble and big brands like Unilever and Clorox or Church & Dwight. And inevitably what would happen is a consultant or a couple of consultants would come in. They were more business people than creative people. And they would have Play-Doh and Slinkies on the table, and they would stand up in front of this group of predominantly business people. There were always a couple of creative guys or women like me at the table, but this consultant would say, be creative to these business people. And they would run us through these exercises, which for me were sort of like, fine, but it always ended up, I felt like the deck that ended up, or the work that ended up coming out of those sessions was milquetoast.
Yes.
Wallpaper paste.
Totally.
Lots and lots and lots of pages.
Absolutely.
Tons of charts. And, but as a creative person who would be tasked with making work off of this stuff, I always felt like, okay, well now who translates this for me? I don't know what to do with it. And I feel like it was, the brand probably thought they got a lot of value out of it, and they were able to sort of like cover their butts a little bit, but where was the value? So I decided, sorry, it's such a long story.
No problem.
I decided to create my own process using my history and sort of like chops as a writer, as a creative person, and this burgeoning sort of talent that I think I sort of started to get, which was understanding brands.
Right.
And sort of like what they need and where they're different and how to stand apart. And so I created my own process.
Before we get into your own process, you just gave me feedback that I can share with my food entrepreneur clients.
What's that?
I tell them all the time. You just explained why big food brands can't create new products, new categories, new programs. What they do, because of the Play-Doh, they have to go out and purchase successful, innovative food entrepreneur brands, develop brands.
And then hopefully not ruin them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You've got a process that works for you as a big food brand, and then you try to work that process, or you try to work some new entrepreneurial brand into that process. I don't know that side of the business like you do, but I feel like that's going to fail. I've seen it fail. I've seen it get watered down, and the greatness that was and I always do this. I always say, you need to put a fist in the air on the behalf of your consumer.
Right.
They do not give a crap about you.
Right.
You've got to give a crap about them. I did a thing on LinkedIn the other day and it got so much interest. And for me, it was the simplest thing. I said, we love to say we in our copy,
Yes.
and that nobody cares. The primal brain, the part of your brain that's like 500 million years old that is only concerned with keeping you alive, wants to hear about you. It's very selfish. I mean, anything that's designed to keep you from dying is going to be selfish.
Right.
And I just made this post and I said, just if you do nothing else, go through every marketing tactic that you have and change all the we's to you. And I think that's what a lot of brands miss. I understand why they miss it.
So to go back, let's go back. What is the difference between, big company brand product development meetings and creating PowerPoints and workbooks to share with other departments, and then the process that you developed? I interrupted you there.
Well, no, that's totally fine. The most important thing for me is you are a brand. I don't care whether you're a big one or a small one. I mean, let's just talk about it doesn't matter. At some point in time, there was a founder or a couple of founders, maybe.
Right.
If a couple of people got together. That person or people had a spark of inspiration that, oh my God, this doesn't exist. This is a problem that I could actually solve. That spark of inspiration gets lost.
Yes.
That spark of inspiration, you could have two brands that make the same exact thing. They're both beef jerky brands, let's say. There's a million beef jerky brands.
Mm-hmm.
The reason that those two founders founded those two brands, I would argue, are completely different. And there is a magic in that. It doesn't necessarily have to be like, we couldn't find a great tasting grass-fed beef jerky, so we made one. I mean, that's robotic, and for me, it's not very inspiring. And it's what a lot of people say at Expo West when I go up. Yes. And I tease them.
Right.
I say, what's your story? They start off with the free-froms.
Yep.
Well, we're fair trade and gluten-free. And I said, no, those are attributes. What's your story? And then they give me that, we couldn't find blank, so we made it. And I said, that's not really very inspiring, is it? What is the fight that you are taking on behalf of the consumer? And let's find that, and let's make that into something.
I totally agree with what you're saying. And I study brands, I study food companies. I'm looking for, I'm looking for evidence of how to be successful with my clients.
Sure.
And so one of the exciting things, or what I have found is so amazing, when you dig through the stories, you still dig through the founder story, you dig through the situations. What is the real history of this brand? And what I have found repeatedly is the founder, the creator of the product, the creator of this successful food item did not know it was going to be the success. There was no spark or inspiration. He was sharing food with, say, 30 people. Sure. And it was their customers that said, oh my God, I've got to have that. I got to have more than that. And I'll just share just one of, there's dozens of examples. Cozy Shack. Are you familiar with Cozy Shack pudding?
Yeah.
I love it. Did you, Land O'Lakes recently purchased it for hundreds of millions of dollars.
Wow. Good.
I don't know if you know that. Do you know anything about the founder's story or anything about the creation?
No.
Cozy Shack was a deli in New York.
Uh-huh.
And the bread man delivered to the deli. He is the one that noticed that on the counter, every time he's delivering bread, there were to-go boxes of pudding at this deli. The owners had no idea. They didn't even think about it. They're busy making sandwiches in the back and how to sell more sandwiches. This route guy, the bread guy, who's the founder of Cozy Shack Pudding, he recognized the consumers were taking this out the door and said, there's a business opportunity, and just scaled that opportunity.
Well, there's that inspiration. I mean, there's that spark. I mean,
yes.
And for me, it's like especially now in the natural channel.
Yes.
I mean, the whole idea of like nutritious meets delicious, that's fished out. We expect that now.
Yeah, it's a given. It has to be there.
Yeah, 30 years ago when I was shopping at Alfalfa's Market in Boulder, if you wanted to be healthy, if you wanted to eat health food, which is like, I don't understand why that term even exists, because isn't food designed to be healthy?
No,
Uh,
no, food is not healthy. That's what I share all my friends all the time.
yeah, but
There's
it's
no
the
healthy
idea
food.
behind food is to feed your health. But if you wanted to
Right,
if you wanted to eat something in a package that was made of good stuff, you had to suffer.
right,
You had to suffer.
right.
You had to be prepared for less because of what you were getting. Now, I really don't think people have to do that. I
Right.
think that, a lot of people have figured it out. A lot of people take it too far. I've got a little bit of I got a big problem with this whole idea of plant-based. Because, you see it too. You have
Right.
emails that come in your email box that talk about trends, hot consumer trends. And uh, the journalists or whatever are saying, plant-based is the new hot food trend.
Right.
I don't know about you, but I don't want to be feeding myself and sort of like trying to build my health on some trend.
Right.
Because
Right.
I feel like, the plant-based thing, all you got to do is slap that on your label now.
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
people go, oh, good, plant-based.
Yeah.
But I think it's getting more and more based and less plant.
Yes. I
With the
agree.
monkeying around and the
Yeah.
hygiene.
People, you and I, people are healthy. Food is nutritious. And so that's what I always keep reminding people I work with. The food's not healthy. It's just nutrition. And that's also
Yeah,
I'm
good point.
working on a project in Africa, and that salad would be unethical to give a salad to someone that's in need of nutrition in Africa
Mm.
because of the content.
Yeah,
But
there's no.
yeah, but you're so right. You're so right. But that's a given. My Plant Perks makes an incredible Gouda cheese product. This plant is called Plant Perks. It's plant based, and so they sent a bunch of samples. I have a bunch of samples at home. I have three teenagers at home, and so within a day, within like 24 hours, 2 days, all my samples were gone because it tasted so awesome. They loved it. It
Yeah.
wasn't. They weren't even thinking about, oh, is it plant based or is
Oh,
it
sure.
vegetarian?
Yeah. Kids, no. And
Yeah,
most
they just
people don't.
yeah, and they were just so excited with the flavor. It's just it has to deliver on that part. It has to.
Yeah. Taste is always first.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what I do with my process is I figure out where the brand stands. What does it
Okay.
stand for? How
Yeah.
does it stand apart from its competitors? What is something that we can offer that many times goes beyond the product?
What would you say? What are the pillars of standing apart from the competitors? What are the notes that you're pulling as far as when you're thinking about with the competitors, or is it unlimited? I mean, are there go to attributes you're looking for?
Well, what I do is I make lists. I pose what I believe is a provocative question,
Hmm.
and then I let the group start to answer. And I have two rules. We have to think like skeptical consumers because, like I said before, they do not care about you.
Right.
You have to care about them. So we think like skeptical consumers, and then we're not drinking our own Kool-Aid. And then the second thing is we have to agree to every syllable that I write up on the giant Post-it notes. Because if we agree, we walk out of here with data.
Do you have?
We're not
Are you saying when they put it on the board that you all as a group agree and then it goes up there? So
every word.
you're filtering it as you go up there. Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's just semantics. Somebody
Yep.
says, one word and there's a similar word, and we end up liking one word better because it's got a little
Yep.
bit more of an emotional charge to it.
Right. Yes.
Uh,
Yep.
I believe that people love stories. People actually do love authenticity. I mean, even the giant food brands that we look at today, back in the 50s and 60s, there was authenticity behind those brands and they were loved by consumers and they were brought into the home.
Right.
Birdseye. I mean, Clarence Birdseye invented frozen food
Right.
and gave you something that you couldn't get in a can. It was perceived as better, fresher.
Right.
And the guy invented it. So, of course, Birdseye became a household name.
Hmm.
And everybody was moving so fast that I'm sure they didn't tell, but they used to tell a lot more stories in advertising.
Yes.
And today we've got what I would argue are more authentic stories that we could tell. You know, they used to tell us stories that cigarettes were good for us. Those were not good stories. But
Right.
now we've got, with the natural channel, we have the opportunity. And I think that brands are running on such thin margins, are getting beaten up by retailers in many cases, are trying to navigate this new world of e-commerce. And, you know, a couple things that you mentioned before we started, this whole idea that, I mean, you see RX bar sell for 600 million bucks after 3 years, and you're like, show me the money. But you don't stop to think that those guys didn't start that brand to sell it for $600 million. They started that brand because they were a couple of CrossFit guys, and the stuff they were trying to eat to make them feel good about what they were doing sucked.
Yes.
And so they came up with that brilliant idea of like putting the, you know, be transparent on the label. And how many brands have you seen sort of like imitation is the sincerest form of flattery on that idea? But they don't go anywhere because it wasn't the, you know, that it didn't have the soul. So what I'm trying to do is convince people that instead of just sell all the time because of all those pressures that I mentioned, slow down, realize that if you make 10 authentic connections with consumers, that's better than trying to talk to 1,000 consumers in this sort of like, here's the discount code kind of a way. Does that make any sense?
Totally. Totally.
And so that's what my workshop does. And then what I do is I go back and I write a messaging Bible. It's like, here is the purpose of the brand that's externally facing. It always starts with, we exist too. The only reason we're here is to help you blank, you know?
Exactly.
And then we write a story around that purpose. And then we write a bunch of key messages, which are a little bit more sort of like logical. And then we write a bunch of headlines that can support that. And we end up with a tagline that the brand can keep going back to. And now they don't have to worry about it anymore. They can hand that to their creative team, and their creative team can then go make good work.
Do you find many brands, many developmental brand, many developing companies, new brands, non-revenue brands, and when I say brands, I'm really talking about companies that are in the process of developing a brand.
Right.
Do you find that they're ineffective with their thought process of hiring a marketing agency and developing their brand materials and going to market? Do you find they're ineffective, and do you find that they want to delegate success to the agency? They'll pick the right person, pick the right team to work with them, and then that's the solution to all their marketing and brand problems.
I mean, it's like, you know, agencies have a product to sell, and they all have a different philosophy. And the digital world has made it more complicated, where everybody is shouting at you about funnels and all this stuff that is like, they make it, it's kind of like, I mean, I was around when the internet first started. And the agency that I worked for at the time created a division that was built to design websites. And there was so much misunderstanding around what a website was that the agency was able to create all this tremendous mystique around it and essentially charge more than it was probably worth. Whereas I think I wasn't a partner in this agency, I had no say. But I think if somebody had come out at that time and said, these things are not that hard. You just need somebody good that can help you figure it out and make sure that it's not just an online brochure and make it do what you want. I think there's an opportunity for agencies that can do that. And I have some pals that run their own shops, and they're small, and that they do that. But yeah, I think that brands get, the shiny object syndrome starts to happen, and they think that the agency must know more than they do. Right. And I would argue that no, they don't.
Yes.
They know the tools. You know what your brand is, man. And just be confident in that. Stop trying to look like the next guy on the shelf next to you. Figure out what is really, truly, interestingly different about you.
Do you find that brand managers, brand owners, food entrepreneurs, operators of food businesses that are looking to brand and go, brand and create packaging and come to market with a new product, do you find that they're trying to delegate the piece of the business, the essence, finding the essence to the agency instead of providing that direction?
It's natural, right? I mean, you get busy, you're running the thing, you're having the meetings, you're trying to sell this thing in.
Right.
Hey, you guys take care of this for me. I'm not in your head though, dude. I can't do it. I can sit in a room with you for a few hours and ask you some provocative questions. What gives us the audacity to think we can win? Is one of my favorite questions. What will the world forfeit if we lose? When we look at our category, what makes our blood boil? What do we want for our consumer?
Yes.
I mean, these are questions that you can answer in a few hours with a group of people, or just with the founder or founders. I've done it that way too.
We're if the numbers I see, 25,000 SKUs come off the fail each year. 80% food companies don't make it. Half of them are going to be out of business. They think they can dream up an idea, dream up a product, and then hire a great agency, raise a little money, and then go to market and start selling product.
Yeah.
What's the big failure, or what are the big stress points in there that are happening from your viewpoint that could be rectified with, say, your course, or what are the big areas they're missing?
Well, I use an example. Wild, WILDE. You know that brand.
Yep.
They launched as a meat bar. They weren't the first meat bar. Epic already had a meat bar, and this guy had a meat bar, and then meat bar. These guys launch as a meat bar. Now, what made them think they could launch another meat bar? I don't know. Part of it is
one of the things I share with my clients, a better tasting product. I tell them, better taste is not a big enough differentiator to pay for the entire business of building a brand, building a food brand.
No, it's not. And so they pivoted. And they pivoted way before COVID made pivot popular.
So tell us about the pivot.
Well, they said, I don't know how they came up with the idea, but I think it's brilliant. They said, let's take chicken breast and let's slice it super thin and coat it with a little bit of tapioca flour and fry it and make a chip out of a pure protein source. So it's meat, it's protein, it's shelf stable, but it's not a meat bar. It's not jerky. It's not biltong. It's not any of these things that we already know. All it is a different form.
Right.
But the stuff's delicious. And yeah, it's expensive, but it's protein. So somebody like me, one of my beefs about the way we eat and the choices that we have is that we eat too many carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't eat enough protein, or we don't balance the two. So I'm always looking for something that is delicious, because unlike my wife, who is a personal chef and is like, you're eating all the vegetables and they're not coming out of a package. I'm like, no, I want to eat the Rhythm Superfoods vegetables, the freeze-dried, cheesed up cauliflower. I want to eat that. Nope. I mean, I like packaged foods as a treat. And so I find something that's got protein in it, that's a different form, that's interesting, that's exciting. I taste it, I like it. But the idea here is that they found something unique. So I think maybe one of the first things you ought to do before you decide to make your new jerky brand is say, be skeptical. Why on earth would a consumer want a new beef jerky brand? It's the only one made in Wisconsin. I mean, I don't care. I'm too busy to care. So like you say, if it's not a big enough differentiator, You can't do it. I mean,
Right.
everybody was coming out with Impossible Burger and Beyond Beef or Beyond Meat, and um, who was it? Teton Waters came out with like a blend, a burger that was like half beef and half vegetable. That's a really cool thing. Now, it doesn't work for you if you don't want to eat beef, but supposedly a lot of the people that are eating Impossible Burgers are meat eaters.
Exactly. Oh yeah. Yeah.
That want to
Big
mix it up.
numbers.
Um, so anyway, I mean, there's another example of a brand that it wasn't a beef brand that tried to like turn its back on its heritage. They said, "Oh, you want to hire, you want vegetables."
Will do makers provide design briefs? And is your workshop sort of like kind of to get the brand owner into facilitating and really creating the design brief for the brand?
Oh,
And,
sure.
and you're walking them through that to get it done, because they're not going to get it done and they don't have necessarily the expertise in house to do it.
No, it's a giant design brief. I mean, I could take my workshop and my output once we've revised it and we agree to every word and we totally love it, and write a brief in 15 minutes
Oh wow.
that would give and it's a brief.
Right.
It's true to the word. It's just like, here's the point of difference. Here's what we're trying to communicate on pack.
Mhm.
Here are a few attributes that we think are really important. And here are the mandatories that we have to have.
Do you have any success stories from going through your process workshop that you could share with us?
Sure. I mean, and it's not in food, but it is in personal
Yeah.
care. So it's still
Yeah.
CPG, I guess. Um, there's a natural deodorant brand called Stink Bug,
Mhm.
Stink Bug Organics. And they hit me up, really nice husband and wife team. They live in Cranberry, Pennsylvania. So it's like, come on. Um, it's so idyllic. And they said, yeah, we're getting all, this was before COVID. This was December of last year when they hit me up. And they said, we're getting a whole lot of pushback from retailers because retailers don't like our name. And we've redesigned the packaging. I want you to take a look at it. And it was like, what are you guys doing? You went completely away from your name. Instead of making the name make sense, they just sort of like, they abbreviated it to SB.
Oh my.
And they made their deodorant package. I mean, they are a natural deodorant. They made their natural deodorant package look pretty much like everybody else's. And so I talked them into doing the workshop. And in the workshop, I basically asked two groups of questions, more than two, but what is it about the brand that is special? And for them, what's the functional point of difference? So for them, it was, a lot of people don't like natural deodorants because they don't work.
Mhm.
They like the idea of it, but then why am I putting something under my arms that ends up not working?
Right.
Um, and they said, our formula is the cleanest you can get, but it actually works. Okay, great. I'll take you on your word. And I've used the product ever since, and it really is, it's true. So what is the emotional point of difference? What do you guys as people, what do you stand for? If that's what your brand stands for, a super clean formulation that really works,
Mhm.
what do you stand for as people? And they said, we believe in second chances. Everything about our life is second chances. We make business decisions so that we can be home, pick our kids up from preschool. It might hurt the business because we can't have a meeting at 3 o'clock on Thursday. Sorry, or sorry, Sprouts or whatever. We have 6 or 7 employees, and they're all people that sort of like got ragdolled by life, problems that they needed to get over, and we gave them a job, and now they have a place where they feel like they have community and a purpose and a sense of direction. We support a local, shelter in our hometown, and we give lots of money to them. So we believe in hope and second chances. So we put the two things together, and we came up with life doesn't stink. So the design brief out of that was design a package that gets that core message in front of everybody. Life doesn't stink. Let's deal with the sort of like functional problem of the name. So we made Life Doesn't Stink this big on the package. We made Stink Bug this big. You still know that it's from Stink Bug, but you think maybe that the brand is called Life Doesn't Stink. And let's make a really short little story that goes on the back, that goes on the website, that says, you know what, we deliver hope a swipe or two at a time. And this is we want our kids to grow up feeling like they're loved, and we want communities to grow up feeling like they're united. And if we deliver a nice smelling pair of underarms to people, that'll be good too. So they became a brand that sells hope and second chances that just happens to make deodorant.
That's brilliant.
That makes sense?
Yes. No, not just sense. It's powerful, and it's moving, and it's emotional. I love it.
And then the social media comes right out of it. It's like, you don't need a production team to make your social media, because they're a small brand.
Right.
Take your iPhone, take a picture of your kid on a swing set, and then put a caption that says, every time we see him like this, we're reminded life doesn't stink.
Right. If they're in the carpool line and, you know, the kids are smiling, you know, I can just see just like you said, the iPhone, anything, everything they do with their life doesn't stink.
Yeah. And even when it does, like COVID comes along.
Right.
And it's hard to sort of like, it's easy to sort of like look in your medicine cabinet first thing in the morning and read that package and go, well, yeah, maybe it does stink. But here's somebody who's trying, you know, you got all these people coming out of the woodwork talking about mindfulness and, you know, do yoga and, you know, write a book so you've got all this time on your hands and try to turn the frown upside down. These guys are just saying, you know what, you'd probably find something to be grateful for. And you can always find something to be grateful for, even though times are tough.
Yep. Yeah, I want to go, as soon as we get off this, I'm going to go check out their website and go, I want to get some. You've got me intrigued.
I hope you do. It's a great brand, and it's a small, but that's an example. And I don't understand why it has to be any more complicated than that.
Yeah, no, it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. It's no more complicated. But
it's tying a function of the brand to a human emotional problem that you're trying to solve.
But you're getting down to a spark. You mentioned spark. You're getting down to a spark. You're getting down to the essence of what that brand is.
Right.
And it's not in the deliverables. It's not in the, it's not in the artwork or, so many times I can see artwork, I can see graphic design, websites, artwork, sales materials, collateral, you name it, packaging, package design. And my impression, they're designing pretty attractive packaging, but it doesn't perform for the brand. It doesn't provide that spark.
Yeah, and graphic design is really important, but if you go to Expo West, I've been going for 10 years. And when I first started going, it was a horrible hodgepodge of graphic design. Dreadful. It looked like alfalfas in Boulder 30 years ago, but now everybody's onto the graphic design game. But the issue that I have with it, I'm a language guy, so that's my hammer. So every problem looks like a nail. But I don't know if I said that right, but you know what I mean. Design in and of itself can attract the eye.
Exactly, and that's my whole point of what I was trying to share with you. Exactly what I want to agree with you. Graphic design with no purpose. The graphic design is attractive. It's well done. Someone very talented did it, but there's no purpose to the brand. There's no function of the design that delivers additional value for the brand. That's what I'm sharing. That's what I'm missing, and that's what it sounds like. That's what you're providing, and
that's what I think. That's what I think people want. I think that. Well, here's the thing, Tim. I think brands think that consumers don't care, and I think that consumers absolutely care.
Absolutely do care.
That if you can give them a smile or a thought, you pick up a package of food, even if you get a package of chips that has 4 servings, you're going to pick that package up at least a couple of times out of your pantry. And so the package is an opportunity to tell me something that makes your puff different than everybody else's. And don't save it for the back. Figure out a way to put it on the front.
Rarely do I turn down a consulting assignment. I do, I will absolutely, I will turn down a consulting assignment if I know that I can't help them or if it's not appropriate. And I just have to go with my, the few times that I do that, I just have to go with my gut. Oftentimes I recognize problems that I've unfortunately experienced in the past, and I'm trying to avoid those. There's other reasons as well. Do you have any reasons that you turn down a client or client work? Have you ever thought about that area, or how you sort of go about that process, if you ever do?
The cool thing about being a one-man band is Unilever ain't gonna call.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not that I wouldn't like them to call.
Right, I know. Yeah.
I wrote a note, a LinkedIn message to the CEO of Gerber last week when he made some announcement on LinkedIn about growing and about the people. And I said, hey, I'd be happy to help you figure out what you stand for and get back to that sort of like back when Gerber was the only baby food.
Right.
I haven't heard back from him.
Yeah.
And I don't, well, I would love to, but I don't suspect I will.
Yeah.
So the beauty of being an individual is that you sort of like brands self-select
Yes.
you based on size. So I get to work with mostly small brands where I can not only have access to the founder and or CEO, if that's a different person, I can actually get them in my workshop and get them to spend 6 hours with me and other members of their team to gain alignment between what everybody wants. And so it's those two rules of mine, think like skeptics and agree to everything, that allows a whole bunch of people with different job titles and roles to agree on something. I mean, that doesn't happen very often. Everybody's got their own thought and their own opinion, and people that do what I do stakeholder interviews, which is like, that's the recipe for wallpaper paste. Because you interview 5 different people and you've got to somehow find a common thread. Well, the common thread is we all like blue instead of something really, cool.
You have such an experienced path and you've had access to so many different brands. What are some of the attributes of the most successful projects you've worked on? What are the attributes of the most successful brands that you've worked on that have helped you to really power success? And what is that key differentiator between the brands that come to you, regardless of size? I'm really looking for, regardless of size, has nothing to do with, size of the business.
Right.
But those items that naturally propel themselves forward. And then with your magic, when you add it to the product, it would go even further, and they're able to leverage your communication piece and be much more successful. But there's often, my supposition or the idea is, there are people coming to you and there are products they bring to you for some reason they're more successful. They're going to be more successful than others. What do you see that makes that, or what is the magic in those products?
Well, the magic is sticking with it. The magic is finding something that's differentiating and not running off to the next shiny object that you see. So, I mean, 2 examples from my history. I mentioned Naked Juice. I worked on Naked Juice right after they'd been purchased by a venture capital firm called North Castle Partners. They bought it from Chiquita. Mm-hmm. It's about, 12, 13 years ago or something. And I did my thing. I did my deep dive with them, and we found very easily, and because their goal at the time, they were niche-y. They were SoCal. They wanted to sit next to Odwalla in every cooler in America, and you know how that went.
Right.
Went pretty darn well.
Right.
They started with a functional benefit. They were like, we don't add any sugar or preservatives to any of our juices, and Odwalla adds one or the other or both to at least half their SKUs. So we said, okay, great. That is kind of like the stink bug story. That's the functional point of difference. Now, what are you guys from an emotional perspective? And they were like, we were born on the beach in Santa Monica. You know, we went towel to towel. We made this stuff in our kitchen every morning, and we carried coolers around, and so we were about the people. And we were about like seeing the joy on people's faces when they consumed something that was as good as the product that we brought them. And so I came up with this line, which was nothing to hide. Naked juice, nothing to hide. Ties to the brand name, ties to the functional benefit, and ties to this sort of like, you're paying $4 for a juice, man. You're out there. You're a free spirit. And so they ran with it for 18 months. You know, we had these fruit protests in big cities where we had people dress up. It was sort of a Fruit of the Loom kind of a thing, but people from the brand dressed up like fruit and walked around downtown Chicago, for instance, or downtown San Francisco, and held signs that were like just all we add is a bottle and a lid, you know, naked, nothing to hide. And so it worked. And they moved, you know, they did just like the most successful brands. They didn't try to do a national launch. This is well before it's sort of the advent of digital. But we did an outdoor takeover in San Francisco, Odwala's hometown. And we just stuck our finger in their eye a little bit around this idea of nothing to hide. And it worked. And 18 months later, they sold to Pepsi for a lot. I don't know how much. I'm not privy to the amount, but that was great. And then, you know, and I think that, you know, I know Pepsi's a great big brand and yada, yada, yada. The brand has lost that soul that it used to have, where it was scrappier and more authentic. And so I would like for them to.
With what you just shared, do you think it's fair to suggest to brand owners they need to stay in one market? Like if you're a new company, stay in 60 miles, stay within 240 miles of your city. Don't try to go nationwide because you can create a website and everyone can access it. Is that part of the success? That was the key component. One of the key ideas you just mentioned.
They had no choice but to go physical. Right. And and I think they took a page out of Pop Chip's playbook. When Pop Chips launched, they'd go to a market, they'd bring street teams, they'd sample the crap out of it. They would do all kinds of shopper marketing. They would get it buoyed up.
Right.
And then they would go down the road to the next market.
And they're that smart food. They're following the popcorn. I mean, I'm sure the guy out of Boston with Smart Food probably makes sense.
I remember Smart Food driving down Larimer Street in Denver, where I had an office, and just throwing bags up to people in open office windows. It was just like, that's authentic.
Right.
That's how you build a buzz. And I think, you know, again, I think a lot of founders with all these sort of like exits that we hear about, you know, we don't hear about the brands that don't ever make it.
Right.
And the entrepreneur that started it that never makes more than 150 grand a year. And struggles, you know, until it's just like it's too tiring because it's hard.
Yes.
We hear about the exits, and that gets people hungry for the exits, and that makes a lot of crazy things happen. Right? Building up debt and bringing in the VCs and getting all kinds of staff. And you hear about somebody in their fourth year that makes all these headlines and has this really cool, interesting product, and they say, we're hoping to be profitable this year. I don't know, maybe I'm just a dummy or I think too small, but
the more money you have, the bigger the mistakes.
Yeah.
You take bigger swings. They take bigger swings. They're going, you know, they're going for the fences instead of allowing the voice of the consumer to come in and the pocketbook of the consumer to make your decision and scale success. That's what I think happens time and time again.
So do I have time for the other example?
Yeah, please. Yeah, go right ahead. Yes.
A little tiny brand that nobody's ever heard of called Lenny and Larry's.
I've heard of them. Absolutely. I know them very well. They're doing fantastic. Oh my gosh. The consumer takeaway on that product's unbelievable.
Yeah. I worked with them. I did my process with them. with Barry Turner, who's the founder.
Yep.
And at the time, they weren't just making cookies. They were making muffins. They were making these brownies, like muscle brownies, they called them at the time. And we were trying to figure out, okay, here's a baked product, or here's a product that's like a cookie or like a brownie or like a muffin that's got protein in it. So you're taking something that the epiphany was, it's a baked good. It's a baked good. And what do people think of when they think of brownies and cookies and muffins? They think carb bomb, gut bomb, not going to eat this after a workout, not going to eat this, period. And so we said, okay, what it seems like, though, to the outside observer might be that you've taken this sort of wholesome thing and jacked it up with a bunch of protein powder. You've engineered it. And so we came up with the line. It's still on their cookies, probably 10 years later, 8 years later, baked nutrition. Baked nutrition, 2 words. Barry still loves it. He still credits the work that we did as, you know, sort of being the catalyst for that brand. I don't know how much do they do a year, do you think?
I would guess, I really have no idea, but I'm going to guess a $500 million brand.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. When I see the takeaway, the consumer takeaway on that product, I'll look up, I'll see if I can find, I'll get the number, and then I'll flash it.
It's everywhere. And,
yeah, I'll get the number. We'll flash it on the screen and let people know.
And they're not messing, you know, they're not doing a bunch of their competitors are doing gluten-free and a bunch of crazy stuff. They've still got gluten in it.
And I think when I see that brand and I see the work that they've done, I think it goes back to your earlier point. We can call it, I mean, I think a lot of people write about grit, but they've continued on. It wasn't easy for them. What they've accomplished wasn't easy. They just, every year, just added to it. And then
it's sort of like they were like 5 years ahead of the world.
Yep.
And they just kept going, and the world caught up with them.
Right.
And so now, I mean, if you look back when they started, I don't think people were, I mean, nobody outside of like the gym community was clamoring for a sweet thing, a baked good with protein in it.
If I'm a food processor making food products, what can I do to be a better brand steward? What can I do? Just what are some points that I could do to begin to really improve my marketing, my brand management, what my company does, how my company serves the market? What is it that I could actually put in? You know, I'm worried about shifts. I'm worried about guidelines. I'm worried about cleanliness. If I operate a dairy product, I'm worried about, salmonella, all recalls. I'm worried about all these operational issues in my business. And then I think, I need to think about my brand. Mm-hmm. What is the guy, what can he do from the office, in his meetings? What can they do to help improve the brand, the life of their business?
Get the founder more involved in everything that has to do with anything the consumer sees. Get the founder in there. Get the vision of the founder. Keep asking the founder provocative questions. Like, where were you when this happened? Where were you when you thought this up? What was the happy accident? What was the epiphany? What do you want for the world? What do you want to be remembered by? I mean, I hear stories like that go, well, we don't want the founder too closely related to the marketing of the brand, because then if we sell it, he or she's going to be handcuffed for another 5 years.
Okay, so let's just take that. My friends founded Jelly Belly Jelly Beans. He created it.
Oh, the Candy Man.
Yep. And so he told me once, he shared with me, his name is David. David shared. Yeah, David. He shared with me. He was watching Sanford and Son on Thursday night. It was a Thursday night. And then there's someone on the show that inspired the name Jelly Belly.
Wow.
And it just popped in his mind. I'm going to do jelly. I'm going to make Jelly Belly Jelly Beans.
That's a cool name. It's a cool story.
That's the story. That's what happened. I mean, obviously there's other pieces. He was friends with Wally Amos and Famous Amos Cookies, and he was inspired. He wanted to create an item, wanted to create something, and that was part of it. But and so he was, set for that. Well, can you use that in the branding, or you just that's a throwaway? That's not really something of
I
value.
think it's indicative of something that's in that person.
Oh, I see.
Like, like I would, if I had him in the room and I had my Sharpie and I was making a list, he'd tell me that story, and then I would ask the room, well, what is it about David that allowed him to even hear that? He's inquisitive. He's always looking for something new.
Yeah.
He never takes the same route. He believes in possibilities. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm trying to make things up to share with you that without any knowledge of the brand that it became. But all of those 4 or 5 things that I just spit out, those things connect beautifully to what he did.
Yes, yes, and I mean, I'm seeing David in your description just like that.
Yeah. He thinks flavor is everywhere. He thinks, why can't you mix and match things? Why can't you get something from here and stuff? You know what I mean? And so if we were back at the beginning, that's what we would do. And then it would be like, this is the DNA of this guy. This is what makes this guy who he is. I'm sure you could pick any founder of any really successful brand, and you could say, here's the spark of inspiration. What does that spark tell you about what this person's made of? Because what we want to do is we want to take some of that magic that person is made of and make the brand out of that. Because people love stories.
Right.
You've got to figure out how to tell them the story. And you got to figure out, like, what's the right ratio of sell versus tell? Because everybody's all, look at anybody's Instagram feed right now in food, and it's all like this weird, they cut it in whatever it is in half, and then they've got it in the hand, and it's like just this gooey mess of, okay, that's looks delicious. Now tomorrow, give me something different. Give me a piece of information that I can use to make my life better, or whatever.
Do you have any tools that people could download from your site, or are there any articles or booklets, or do you have any freebies that you can email to people if they ask for?
Yeah, I'm working on all that. I got a couple of things that I can send people if they shoot me an email.
Awesome. How would they get in touch with you?
Eric with a C at thedigestiblebrand.com.
And your website's digestiblebrand.com also, is that correct?
Yeah, and it sucks right now. It's sort of like I haven't touched it since COVID happened, but I've got some guys that are going to work on it for me, and so it's good. I mean, it's fine. It's just not updated.
Tell us. Okay, so we just went through David's kind of the spark there, and we talked about brand origins. Tell us about the Digestible Brand, how that came about.
I was a partner in an agency, and we had an agency new business expert by the name of Michael Gass, Gass. And he basically has created this idea that agencies tend to sell themselves as though they're unique. They've got all this trademarked language and everything, but right. At the core, they're all the same. It's the people that are unique. And he said, if you really want to attract people in an authentic way, get one of the owners to write a blog that's at least tangentially affiliated or connected to something that you do in the agency. And CPG was one of our strengths. The agency's still there. I just separated from them. That's all. And make that person write in a way that shows the passion that they have. So for me, what I said, I raised my hand because I was the mouthiest of us. And I said, I'll do it. I want to write about food, and I want to inject all this stuff that's come from my trajectory of trying to get my fitness and my diet and my health all worked out, which started with CrossFit like 8 years ago, and then progressed to the different, various diets until I found one that worked for me, and then hiring a functional medicine doctor to take 40 vials of blood at a time out of me to find out what I've really got going on in there, and tell brands, sell food brands. So it's a blog that's written for food brands. And it basically encompasses a lot of what we're talking about, but the basic core of it is people don't know what the hell to eat. They don't know what to eat to reach their goals, to get their bodies to behave. And so that's why we run from diet to diet and food to food and new miracle ingredient to new miracle ingredient. We're trying to find an answer to this problem that we have. And so my counsel to people through, like, I don't know, there's 100 or so articles on the blog and probably 60 videos, is think outside the product. Think, what is the problem that you are trying to solve for people? My friend Mark Samuels runs I1 Organics. It's a puff, it's a chip, it's great. It's just made of, vegetables and protein. And so it's got a fairly balanced macronutrient profile, which is something that I really, and when we did some work, it was like, people don't feel like they're winning when it comes to nutrition. So thus the name I Won. I'm winning on nutrition. But then beyond that, he's a single dad with a couple little kids. He manages to handle them. He's got an amazing health regimen, and he's always showing his workouts on LinkedIn. He's become like the LinkedIn sort of like positivity sage. He's trying to show people how to balance it all. So there's an example. We took, okay, it's a fairly balanced snack, which, okay, that takes care of me for 5 minutes while I'm eating it. What do you got for me beyond that? Let me show you through what I do how to balance your whole life, how to keep your balance. And so there's another example of like what my blog would help people do if they believe it.
Awesome. And we'll have a link down below. Is there anything else that you want to share with food entrepreneurs and people that are interested and curious about improving the quality of their brand?
I've got an idea. Can I share my screen real fast?
There we go.
So this is a brand. I've heard about this brand a couple years ago. I just found them in my Whole Foods the other day. Delicious product, cool packaging, really gets your attention. If I show you this right here, Save the Spud, and this is on this truncated version of this is on the back of their package.
Right.
Every sweet potato they use would have gone in the landfill.
Wow. That's unbelievable.
Yeah. So right here in the orange, let me see, can you see my cursor?
Yes.
Over 150 million pounds of imperfect sweet potatoes end up in landfills each year because they're deemed imperfect due to minor flaws. These guys use nothing but upcycled sweet potatoes. And then down at the bottom, we're on track to save 1 million imperfect sweet potatoes by 2021.
Wow.
Well, you go back to the homepage, and this is what you see on shelf.
Yep.
So my thought for these guys, and for any brand that has, you find out about their sweet potato program on the back.
But after you purchased it, after
I've already bought it, or maybe I've looked at it, but I don't have time for that.
Right.
We love split testing in digital.
Yep.
Right? You never just put up an ad, you always put up an A and a B.
Yes.
Why wouldn't these guys put an A and a B on the shelf? Like they could make a sticker.
Oh, the reason they don't put an A and B is because it's 30,000 impressions. It's just on the packaging. That's why.
What do you mean 30,000 impressions?
Packaging. You said, why don't they have A and B on the shelf? I agree with you, but they're thinking they're taking a swing and they're not really testing it. That's why.
Well, no, I'm not saying is the packaging design right. I'm saying this packaging design is great.
Yep.
They could make a sticker.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That would fit maybe down in the bottom left-hand corner or something.
Sure.
That would say something like, these sweet potatoes would have been in the landfill without us, or something. I mean, I don't have time to be creative right at the moment.
Right.
Put a sticker on there. Get your favorite retailer, somebody who will work with you, to either do a side by side where you've got both bags on the shelf at the same time, or trade them all out. You know, measure the turns for a month, put the sticker on however many bags move in a month, and see if it changes.
It will. It would take me 6 purchases before I figured that out, probably.
Right.
And I definitely would never have figured it out from the website without you pulling it out like you did. Even when I go to the Save the Spud, I still didn't understand it. It took me a long time to ever get the idea of what you're trying to share with me.
Save the Spud's not the right headline for this nav. They could be more clever and more overt. Here's another brand that I love, Lesser Evil. And they've got this new product right here, Veggie Sticks.
Yes.
On the back, again, on the back, they've got copy that says, "Is there really veggies in your veggie sticks?" Or something like that.
Right.
These guys actually use carrot powder and tomato powder and broccoli powder in these darn things. They're really delicious. And look at this white space down here where they could put a sticker.
Yep.
That just says, "There's really veggies in our veggie sticks," or "the only veggie sticks with real veggies."
Yes.
Because the other veggie stick brand that everybody buys, I think it's called Sensible Portions or whatever,
Yep.
nice tasting product. They don't have any vegetables in there.
Wow.
Potato is not a vegetable.
Right.
It's a tube.
Yep.
So here's another opportunity to split test, like the stuff that you think goes on the back and nobody gives a crap about. Put it on the front and see if it moves more product.
Awesome.
That's my thing.
Eric, I appreciate you so much sharing here on timforrest.com today.
Thanks,
I had a
Tim.
blast. It was a lot of fun. I learned a lot as well.
Me too. It was fun.
Thank you very much. Do you want to share again your website, anywhere that you want people to go just to revisit?
It's Eric with a C at thedigestiblebrand.com if you want to chat it up. Or it's just thedigestiblebrand.com if you want to go and look at the articles.
Also, you're over on LinkedIn as well, so you do a lot with LinkedIn. So
Eric Kiker on LinkedIn, and I'm always there. And I like to do videos, and I like to put up little posts that are helpful. That whole me versus you thing, I did that post the other day, and it got a lot of people going, wow. So if anybody sees as you see this, just go to your website and see how many times you use we versus you and change that language around.
Exactly. So thank you so much. Hey, and thank you so much for watching here at timforrest.com. If you're seeing this anywhere other than my website or my YouTube channel, youtube.com/timforrest consulting, be sure to go over there, like and subscribe. I want to hear what you think about your branding and how you're approaching it with your business and your success stories or failures as far as approaching branding. Thanks a lot, guys. And thank you so much, Eric, for being here.
Thanks, Tim.
I like that. Have a good one.
I'll see you around, man.